Welcome, everyone. Today's episode of FTD's version of my video series, I thought I'd do a fun one that I've done before in my old league. It's called the Forbes 21 Under 21. I thought I'd do kind of like a top prospect list for the younger prospects in FTD to kind of keep an eye on who's going to be the future stars and some of the fun young prospects coming up. Always kind of fun, especially for teams out of the playoff run to kind of start focus on their future. So this episode, I had a couple rules. One, I don't like how the OSA. The reason I do this, I don't like how the OSA has so many young guys at the top, like that are in the international complex. If you look at any of the prospect lists in real life, they all are quite a bit older. Like, you're never going to have a guy that's like the number two prospect in baseball that's 16 that just got signed. Like, it's just kind of silly because you have no idea what that guy's like. You're just going off physical tools. Uh, and so I like, obviously those guys are pretty good. Like, if you look at our list, you see some absolute superstars at the top here. But he's like 17, 18, 17. You had a lot of guys on there that haven't proven anything yet. Like right out of Dominican at like 16 years old, never played against competition. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of do a legitimate, like a real list to make some rules. So I pretty much don't have anyone on this list that hasn't played above rookie ball. So almost everyone on this list is under 21 at 20, 19, 18 years old that has played. If not, if they're still in rookie ball, it's like the second year and they're kind of advanced and they've had quite a bit of plate appearances. I think like the top guy, the Pierce there, the catcher, but made an exception for. But essentially, everyone on this list, as you can see here, has played at quite a bit higher level of the rookie. So I thought it'd be like a realistic, like a Fangraphs version of the prospect list. So what I'll do here is I did all the position players and then I went to go to the pitchers, and I noticed a trend at the pitchers. There wasn't nearly as many top pitchers in FTD as position players. So I was going to kind of keep them separate, but I did throw the top two pitchers in my list, and I'll kind of give you like a little preview of like the honorable mentions for the other pitchers. The pitchers, like I said, it's just a lot more guys develop in college and go out of the draft right out of college than position players. So you'll notice that that's a kind of ratio. It's really heavily weighted towards position players. So pitching wise, a couple honorable mentions. This Palacio guy looks nasty. Doesn't quite have the top control of some of the high end guys, but he has really nasty stuff and movement. A really nasty fastball, throws super hard, and is absolutely killing it at A-ball this year. Guys are only hitting 200 off him. So in real life, if he was putting up those stats at that age, that kind of fastball, I think he'd be real high up. So that's a really, really nasty guy there. Edgar Nava looks really nice. He would probably be my list. He just had a massive elbow injury, which is like the worst kind of injury for young pitchers. So hopefully he can bounce back. Nicknamed Big Cat, he is a beast. He was up at high A already at just 20 here with crazy potentials. Two really elite pitches there, so he looks really nice too. And then you have Greg Long is a beast. He's 6'7" with a crazy curveball. The guy throws real hard for a 6'7" guy that's young. And he also has four really good pitches. The changeup is just one we're waiting on there, but he looks like if he could get a little bit more movement, he could probably be like a number one or number two. The 45 movement's always a little scary in the home run type ballparks, but he looks like he has almost everything you need there for an ace. Looks real good. And then Ben DeWeese here, love his skill set. Just missing a bit of stuff. Doesn't have that super electric fastball some of those other top prospects have, but has a nasty sinker to make up for it and a splitter. A lot of stuff that goes up and down there. And then you have the high movement and the high control. Super advanced for his age. Probably the most advanced guy here, with all three categories almost being major league ready. So good guy to keep an eye out that could really play at a high level in the minors probably pretty soon here. Looks like really, really solid starting pitcher. So I'll jump right into my list here. I'll go real fast for these bottom guys. I actually did an FV too, like a future value ranking. I'll show you guys at the end, like they do in real life on Fangraphs. So you kind of get like a 50 future value or like a 55. So I had a bunch of guys grouped up at 55 here. And I think one more thing, remember, everyone's under 21. I think a few guys turned 21 the last 3 weeks since I made this list. So it will say 21, but essentially it's everyone that was 20 as of like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So a couple guys just crossed the birthday threshold. So if you're wondering why the other top 21-year-olds in the league aren't in this list, that's why. So bottom of the list here, I got JD Phillips. He's about number 26. He has a pretty nasty profile, just missing a little bit of power and eye. Really electric, though. On the base pass, really solid defender, high contact, super, super advanced lefty bat. So guys hitting almost 300 in AAA at that age is crazy. So doesn't look like he has a huge ceiling just without the massive power. Still is going to be like a really solid center fielder though. Pretty nasty talent there. And then next up we have Billy Hastings. Billy Hastings is a nice, super advanced power bat. 55 current power, hit 21 home runs as an A-ball this year, almost 4 WAR. Just a crazy, crazy developed guy. He listed third base, but probably just a first baseman DH. That's why I bumped him down a little bit, or he'd be quite a bit higher if he could play high level defense. But looks like he'll be a real nice first base bat in the league here. I really liked what he brought to the table there. So probably could be a little bit higher, to be honest, but there is a lot of talented guys on this list, so it's kind of tricky. Next up, I have Chris Roebuck, another guy in the 55 future value thing. He was super advanced. He looks like a DH only, unfortunately. Watch why he's so low on this list compared to the bat, but the bat is so advanced, it's crazy. It looks like he'll definitely be good enough to be a DH in the majors pretty soon here, so really liked his bat. Line drive hitter with a ton of double power in that ballpark in San Francisco. He should have some major doubles and triples numbers over the next few years. So really thought he should deserve to be on this list too. Next up, we have Pat Carlson. Carlson is a corner outfielder, looks like a left or right fielder, that has a huge bat. So he's not a very good runner, and he's not a great defender. So I didn't put him any higher in this list, but the bat looks like it could be real special. And he's a captain and a leader, so nice lefty 20-year-old guy that's fully developed, pretty much major league ready. I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't in the minors for long next year. Probably just play a couple weeks there. He's probably just saving the service time. Could almost be a September call-up this year, but hasn't really played above high A, so you don't really want him in the majors quite until he's done it at double A. But absolutely destroyed high A this year and should be a major league starter pretty soon there in the next year or two. So really advanced bat, though, for his age for sure. Next up, I have AJ Sheets. Sheets went really high in the draft just a year ago there, 5th overall pick. Is a guy that can maybe survive at left field, but more like a DH2. So a lot of these big bat DH guys are a little bit lower. I kind of bumped down on the list a little bit, nerfed them a little bit just because of the lack of ability to play a high level in the field. So these guys all have really good bats, but just like the guy before, just kind of a bunch of guys with like 50, 60 bats, but just can't play great. But he probably could play a little bit in the left field, but unfortunately probably not in Detroit because the outfield's so big out there, big stadium, so a lot of ground to cover out there in left field. But really like his bat, just a monster offensive guy there. Next up, I do actually have my first pitcher. So I have the pitcher here ranked at number 21, Ramon Rojas. This is one of the guys I didn't go over because I have him on this top 20 list. So Rojas is a 60 stuff, major stuff guy with an advanced changeup. He is freakishly advanced when those two things. He's just waiting on his control movement, but 33% strikeout rate in double A at 20 is insane. His stuff is absolutely elite. Probably worst case scenario, he'd be an elite bullpen guy, but it looks like he should be for sure a starter. I'm just saying if he doesn't get that control, it might be a little better in the bullpen if it never gets like above 40 or 45 there. But from all looks of it, he'll be frontline starter that probably strike out a ton of guys. And in Miami there, that those pitchers just perform so well in that stadium, so it wouldn't be surprising at all if this guy was like extremely productive in a couple of years there. It looks like a 5 WAR starting pitcher. He just looks unbelievable. So really liked him. So I'd throw him up on this list. And next up, we have the other pitcher here, Ortiz. Danny Ortiz is so fascinating. First glance, I thought I'd have a lot higher in this list, possibly right in the top 5. He has a really weird, really fascinating group of pitches. He is a 40 current in all 3 things. So he's super developed, and he's done pretty well in the minors up until this year. He's getting rocked a little bit at high A, but he was dominating down in A ball there. Really doing good, only 6% walk rate, and he jumped up, and his walk rate went a lot up, and his strikeouts are way down. So a little bit over his head so far, but he's adjusting at high A. A couple good starts this season there, but he just has a weird skill set because the changeup's so low, hasn't developed yet, and the other pitches that are really high don't have the high ceiling. So it's really interesting to see 2 best pitches potentially are a slider and changeup. The OSA has an 80 changeup and a 70 slider. So just a crazy ceiling. The reason the stuff is still 25 points off the potential is because it's just waiting on that changeup, which is so low. As soon as that changeup starts to develop, if it does, I think his stuff's going to go way up and his strikeout percentage go way higher. It's only 11% right now. So looks like he's a guy that definitely needs some seasoning for another year in the minors for sure, probably 2 more years, but Even though normally you'd see a guy with all 40s, you think he's getting pretty close to Major League ready, but he's just waiting on some interesting pitches. But wouldn't be surprising at all with how hard he throws and how high the stuff rating is if the cutter and curveball's potentials did go up, especially the cutter. I could totally see that being like a 60 or 65 if this guy develops anywhere close to what his ceiling is. So it'd be really interesting. That's probably the one guy I'd really like to keep an eye out because he's really, really interesting profile compared to the other guys. I think he'll have an interesting career for sure. All right, next up we have Juan Lopez. Juan Lopez is another big bat. This guy is a really nice defender at first base, though, and he also has some athleticism. That's the reason I bumped him above those other big bat DH types. Similar bat to those guys, like 65, 70 contact, about 60 power. Super high contact avoid K rate with some nice running. So he should be a guy that hits a real high batting average and has a little bit of gap power, not a ton, but has some home run power. So wouldn't be surprising to me if he put up seasons where he hits like 300, 24, 26, 28 home runs. Maybe even 30 home runs with like 15 doubles or something. And nice, doesn't ground into a lot of double plays with that nice athleticism and high avoid K. So just waiting on the eye to develop pretty much. And then it should be a guy that should be in the majors by the time he's like 21 years old. So really, really, really nice prospect there for the Washington team. Next up, we have Mercik here, the right fielder. We're into the top 18 now. Jarod Mercik is a monster. He's got a really high ceiling. He's a little bit less developed than some of the guys on this list, but I didn't really want to put him much lower because when a guy's 19 with a 40-80 bat, contact-wise, and that kind of power, and he can play a corner outfield spot and has really high line drive with a high gap power and super high avoid K. Super developed too at 19. Having 40 and 50 and 35 is crazy. Really low eye, but it doesn't really matter when the bat is that good. He's going to make so much contact. He doesn't really have to walk. He'll just have quick at bats. Really aggressive hitter, but it's really all just comes down to the power. He has hit 4 home runs in rookie ball already, which isn't too bad, but as soon as that power starts to trickle up to 35, 40, he's going to be a lot more dangerous and probably has the potential to be a future top 5 prospect if he can get to like a 70 contact, 60 power type profile with that defensive ability and a pretty decent athleticism for like a left fielder. So really, really high ceiling, but also really iffy if sometimes with that 25 power if that turns out or not, but still really young, so another guy to keep an eye on, but crazy ceiling on him. Next up we have Marko Quintana. Quintana is listed as a shortstop, but he's definitely a second baseman from the looks of it. Guy could also play left field. Second baseman with 60 range, even though the other stuff's a little low. I think the bat is so elite. I think for a second baseman that it'll make up for the lack of defense. And I don't think the defense is that bad. Like the range is definitely the most important thing on defense, especially at the middle of the field type. So might cost you a couple double plays, only having 45, might make a few more errors than he should. But I think at 60 range, his zone range shouldn't be much below 0. There's a lot of second baseman baseball with only 50 and 55 range. So, and especially if that gets better, like if you got up to a 45 error and 50 arm or something, or 45 arm or like a 50 turn double play, that'd look a lot prettier. So, and that could definitely happen with a guy that young. So we'll see what if he gets better, but it doesn't really matter because he's like a pro ready hitter right now. Dude's crushing it in the minors this year. Had a monster season with 14 home runs in high A. Got promoted, hitting 280 in double A there at that age. Lefty bat with some huge splits. As a lefty bat right now, he is already ready against major league pitching in the right side, like a platoon guy. But dude that could play second base and put up like 140 WRC plus most likely. So that's why I have him so high in this list because there's such a lack of elite infielders in the league. Anytime you have an infielder with that kind of a bat that can survive on defense in the middle of the field, he's going to be real good, even though he's not a great runner. Has some flaws, but really, really, really interesting second base prospect, in my opinion. Sal Arrona here is next up on our list. He's a first baseman, just like a lot of those other guys I keep talking about early in the list with the big bats. He's just so well-rounded and so advanced. I bumped him up ahead of those other guys, and he also has a really good mentals. Fly ball hitter with high leader and high work ethic. The eye is just insane. It's like easily major league quality right now, walking 13% of the time and high A at that age. And he has all 40s and 60s, and dude is just a little bit of contact and power away from being major league ready. I think that's like a profile that doesn't look that far off, like a Freddie Freeman in real life, a guy that has like 60 and everything, really good approach, really good power, really good contact. Like Freddie Freeman would be closer to 70 contact, but that's just the kind of ceiling this guy has with all 60s. Anyone that's like all 60s and everything is just a fantastic hitter and a guy with good mentals that can play a decent defense at first base and have that is just a guy that's definitely like a pretty friggin' good prospect. So that's another 55. And then next up we have Sergio Lugo. Lugo here, sorry, I was saying that name wrong. Sergio Lucio. Sergio is a huge bat in left field, most likely. He can also play first base at a really high level. The guy has crazy base running, which I love, high leadership, high work ethic, passes all the tests over there, and he's a fly ball hitter with monster power, gap power, and contact. So, guy that's 18 years old, 6'7", so he'd be like a Gold Glove type first baseman, probably like a 70 defender there, maybe if he develops a little bit more, just with how good the height helps on first base there. And then as a batter, he's just incredible. But he could definitely play some left field with how awesome his bat is. Be like Eloy Jimenez, where he's not a great defender, but he could definitely play out there and hit like 290 with like 40 home runs a year. Dude's a beast with the bat, so big stick. Next up, we have Jose Gomez. Jose Gomez is another first baseman. This league is just loaded with first base talent. So many big bats. It's incredible. This guy has ridiculous gap power. So he's the highest of all the first basemen so far. Looks a lot like the Seattle guy we just talked about, Arrona, but with the all 60s, but just a little bit higher. He's got 65 contact and 75 gap. So he's hitting a ton of power this year. The A ball, he's hitting 13 home runs. So actually, not a ton of power. That's not correct. Actually hasn't quite had a huge season down there. That was the other guy I was thinking of, but he's just such a ridiculous gap ball hitter. I think this guy put up crazy, like 45 doubles a year with some major power and contact. He's got a little bit of flaws, like the low mentals and not a great runner, but he is a lefty bat with 75 gap power. So this guy's just a doubles machine. We'll see what he does in Arizona. It's another good organization. So that's another reason I think he'll be able to hit in the middle of the lineup there for a real good ball club. So next up, we have a little bit of a tier jump. So now that we're into the top 14, we're going to, top 13, we're going to start. This is where you get some of the real talented guys. So Sidney Hendrix is a center fielder. That's a real legit center fielder. He's 6'5" with 65 range, huge base running and speed and ceiling combination. Guy's got 10% walk rate. So the eye is legit at 19 years old. And he's another guy, like I said, that I try to keep this mostly to A-ball guys, but he's just, he's played quite a bit in rookie now, and he had 12 home runs in rookie. So I thought that was enough to show that that bat is legit with his kind of defense, high intelligence. He just showed enough, and he's so advanced with the 40 current and the 35 at 19 years old. I just figured he was too talented not to have on this list. So another guy I made an exception for. Guy has a super, super high ceiling. If he could get to 45 or 50 power with that kind of contact and defense and speed, can be a major player out there in center field. Another good organization there in Tampa Bay, should develop pretty nicely. Ruben Godinez is another guy listed at center field here. Another guy with just ridiculous gap power and high contact. He's just like the last guy, but he has even more gap power and a little bit more of a developed approach. 75 speed, high work ethic, really good at already trained at all three outfield spots. Just a crazy talent. Don't have to talk a lot about these higher guys. It's just pretty obvious looking at the screen how talented they are. Just a ridiculous developed guy too. A switch hitter with already major league ready contact, gap power, eye, and avoid K. So essentially, he could play in the majors almost next year. Just going to wait on that power for a year or two, and we'll see if that develops. It might not never get above 35 or 40, but even if it doesn't, he's still a major league starter in center field because he's just so ridiculously talented. That was the other Arizona guy, that first baseman, 75 gap power, and this guy's 80. So they're going to have two guys that just have ridiculous gap power in the middle of that lineup. This guy could probably hit like number one or number two in the lineup. Just a crazy, crazy ceiling on him. Absolutely love that profile. And then number 11, we got Danny Diaz here. So Danny Diaz is sorry, am I reading that wrong? Yeah, third baseman here. Sorry. So Diaz, I just missed him. Has a crazy ceiling. He's another guy that has a team, but he's played in high A this year. Sorry, low A after a full season of rookie. The guy has 75 gap power also. The guy has quite a bit of contact for his age. At 35 current with 35 OK current at 19 is really, really advanced. If this guy was in the draft, he'd go like first overall, like a guy that could play like legit third base with 6'5" arm and kind of bad mental, so there's some flaws, and a really low current power. He's hit 5 home runs, 53 games, so if that power only ever gets to 40 or 45, he's not quite the same prospect, but if it gets to 45, 50 with that gap power, he should have a high ISO and plus defense at third base with plus contact. That's a recipe for like a 5-WAR third baseman. So just the fact that, again, he's an infielder at a key spot at third base, and there's just so few of those guys that can play short second and third at a high level with nice bats. So he gets bumped up a little bit above some other guys on this list with crazy bats that are kind of first base, left field only. But I don't. This guy's pretty risky. He's a lot riskier than some of the guys lower on this list. But his ceiling is so high. If he could even go say more power than that. If he got to he went up to like 25, 55 or something, ended up being like a 20 home run guy a year, 25. He's just going to be a monster. So that one I kind of second guessed myself on. I think I probably could have ranked him a few spots lower, but regardless, a really good talent. So next up's probably one of my favorite prospects in the league. I was really hoping he followed me in the draft. Pat Pierce is a monster bat catcher. Another guy, like I said, that kind of broke the rule. Not really playing an A-ball yet to be on this list, but he's had a full season of domination in rookie, so that was enough for me. The guy as a catcher, he has a 370 BABIP. Like the guy has major power, 9 home runs in 40 games as a catcher, which is crazy. 142 WRC plus. He has low strikeout rate, 20% for a catcher is crazy. Over 200 ISO. Guy's hitting 320. Huge on base percentage because the walk rate's decent. 386. And he's also gone up to a 30 defense at catcher, which is pretty rare. Those high school guys have like 0 rating there when they get drafted. So really quickly, he's already gone up to a 30. So he's a guy that can definitely be a legit catcher with 55 ability. Wouldn't be surprised if he went up to 60 because a lot of time those really talented catchers at only 18, 19 ability will go up 5 or 10. So wouldn't surprise me one bit if that guy was like 60 or 65 ability in a couple of years. And he's also a fly ball hitter with some legit power. And his eye's not even close to being capped out. He's only at 25 out of 65. So guy has a ton of room to grow, but he's also just showing so much already. So really, 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 really high ceiling on that. One of the best offensive catcher bats you'll see. Really nasty. Gastone Re is the next on this list. Gastone Re is 55 range, 55 arm. So he's could probably survive at third base if his arm just got a little bit better. It looks kind of like a second baseman to me, even though the turn double plays a bit low. Kind of a tweener between second and third, depending on how he develops. Won't be a great defender at either spot, but it will definitely be passable with a very high level bat. If he's a second baseman with that kind of bat, the guy's hitting at A ball really well already this year, and he had 11 home runs between the two levels, so a middle infielder. That kind of power is pretty rare, almost 200 ISO. The guy's only 19 too, so just a crazy line drive hitter, 65 speed, high work ethic, has so many tools. One of my favorite prospects. I just love middle infielders with big bats at that age, so guy to really keep an eye on. If he develops, say he got up to 60 range or something in 50 air, he's just going to be like a really high level second baseman that it's just a very rare profile for the middle of the field. So super high ceiling. That's why you get him. I forgot to mention these last few guys were jumped up to the 60 FV tier. So now we're at the really elite prospects. So now we're in the top 8 on this list. Now we have Chris Marko. This is pretty much the best shortstop prospect in baseball under the age of 21. This guy is missing a little bit of an arm, but he makes up for it with the 75 range. Probably is going to go up to 80 here soon, potentially. Super high turn double play and air. So guy's just going to be super rangy out there, and hauls a really solid bat for a shortstop. Very good to have a shortstop with 50 contact and almost 50 power and 50 eye. So a lot of shortstops, and they're starting FTD right now, only have 40 bats, like 35 power, 40 or 45 contact. So this guy's going to be one of the better hitting shorts, not like top 5 or anything like Royce Lewis, but the guy should be able to survive with like an 80 WRC plus in his prime if he reaches all his ceilings. And that's pretty solid for a shortstop that's in the top 15. The guy has just elite defense too, just a line drive hitter with nice gap power. So many tools. Just a super, super, super athletic, rangy shortstop that's already proven at such a high level. He had 2.5 WAR at A ball this year. Got bumped up to high A. Had another 2.5 WAR. So he's at 5 WAR this year. Then he got bumped again. So he's at 5.5 WAR and produced pretty solidly at every level. The offense hasn't been great. Really doesn't look like he's a good base stealer. Got caught 14 times and he only caught 11. So he's been caught stealing like 25 times this year, so he's really got to work on that. But the guy is just a crazy defensive specimen. So anytime you have like a guy that can be an 80 range type guy with a solid bat, that's pretty ridiculous. Next up, we have Greg Baldwin. This is my top pitcher. We've done so many position players in a row. Like I said, it's just so swayed. But this guy definitely deserves to be up here. This guy could even probably be a couple spots higher. The guy looks like an absolute... sorry, I talked about Lithenthal already. Let's go here. Give me a second. Baldwin, I meant. Sorry. So Baldwin has all the makings of an ace. This guy has an elite fastball, super, super talented, with really good cutter, and knuckle curve is elite too. The guy has 4 really legit pitches. super advanced stuff rating, and the control and movement are really good for this guy. Just turned 21, so again, he's on this list because his birthday was just a couple weeks ago. When I started this list, he was 20. I just haven't made the episode for a week or so. The guy has an incredible season so far at high A. He started in A ball and he was real good. They bumped him up to high A, dominated, 32% strikeout rate, had a 2 FIP on the dot. Guys are only hitting 140 off him, so he bumped him to double A at a young age, getting lit up a little more than he was at the other levels, but still surviving. Not bad. Like a 4.1 FIP isn't terrible. Holding his own there, but this guy has ace written all over him. Just with the so many elite pitches, throws so hard, has all the high stamina and hold you want. Super advanced, has 65, 60, 60 potentials. This guy's just a really elite pitching prospect. So can't wait to see if he turns into the potential ace that he looks like. But definitely has a ton of tools. Love that profile. Next up, we have our top 6 prospects. So number 6 is Vinny Fernandez. Vinny is a freaking tool shed here. Guy's got 80 speed, 70 stealing ratings. He's got 34 stolen bases this year. Hilariously got caught 31 times. So another guy really has to work on that. I don't know. I don't remember these guys like in the old games ever getting caught this much. So I don't know if they have like an experience rating at stealing or something they're not showing. But these guys probably got to work on that. But with 80 speed and 70 stealing, he should be a lot better than that. So that's weird. But we just let him do that in the minors maybe and learn. And we'll see after maybe in the majors he learns how to do it a bit better. But anyways, guy's a 300 hitter at high A at 19. 80 contact with plus power and plus eye. Super raw in those two, but everything else is super advanced. The defense is really good too. 55 range, 70 arm. It's a weapon in right field there to have a big arm guy that's pretty rangy. So it should be a plus defender with plus base running. Super, super high gap power, 65 current. Guy's going to hit a ton of triples there with that speed and gap power combination and hit a ton of singles with the high contact and high avoid K. It just comes down to if the power is real. If the power is not real, he's probably still a 3 to 4.5 WAR player in right field because he has everything you look for, like a 5-tool guy. If the power is 50 or 55 and the eye's 50, he's probably an MVP candidate. That's probably close to 7 or 8 WAR in his prime. A guy that could hit 320 with like 25 home runs and plus defense and 20 steals, be like a 20-20 guy. He's just got a crazy ceiling. Either way, even if the power is not real, he's so talented. He's still going to be a fantastic baseball player. But could be our number 1 prospect in a year or two here when he's like 21 on this list. If he hasn't made the majors by that point, if he develops a little bit more power, so young and so talented with high work ethic, the crazy ceiling. And that's it's pretty much 2 guys in a row from Washington, him and the shortstop. So those 2 guys at the same age there have a crazy future together. So really exciting for Washington. They have a 3rd prospect on this list too, if you remember the pitcher, Danny Ortiz. And also they have that first baseman too, Juan Lopez, we talked about. So Washington really showing out here, 4 amazing young prospects. Quite the core they have for the future. So next up, we have our top 5. Jerry Swain. This guy was the 3rd overall pick this year. 75 contact as a center fielder at 19 years old with a 40 current. Guy's crazy. He's almost the same as our last prospect we just talked about, Vinny, but he's a center fielder with 65 range instead of being a right fielder with a big arm. So almost the exact same profile. Jerry is in A ball this year, 6 home runs and 1 WAR. He's really young for the level, but he's still passable. 92 WRC plus is really solid for center fielder. Hasn't dominated with the bat yet because he's young and the power hasn't come along yet, but almost like exactly the same write up as the last guy, where if he gets that 55 power with 75 bat in the high range, same as last guy, probably a 7 WAR MVP type player. If not, he's still a really solid starting center fielder that will hit for batting average and be a good athlete. And if he gets to 35 power, so hit 15 home runs a year, he's still a really good player, like a 3 or 4 WAR player. So really similar dudes at those last 2 picks, which is really cool. We'll keep an eye on them and see which one ends up better between the 2. Swain's just 1 spot higher in this list because of the center field over right field is kind of what gave him the bump for me. Next up, we have Mike Williams. Mike Williams comes out number 4 in this list, the most advanced guy in this list by a mile. He just didn't quite have the ceiling of the top 3 guys because he's like a first base DH type, and he's not a good runner. So he's already an amazing hitter, and I think he'll be a 2 or 3 WAR guy every single season of his career, at least minimum. Probably like a 4 or 5 WAR guy if he kind of develops the last little 10% of his profile there and gets right to his eye and stuff. Showed out pretty well this year on a really good playoff type team, hitting 280 with 16 home runs. So young, should almost double those numbers. Should be like a 30 home run guy in his prime there at least. So the guy is incredible talent. You notice the currents are just so much higher than everyone else on this list. So many guys of the same age on this list have like 30 and 25 currents. The guy's just a major league ready already. Played there for 115 games, so just a crazy floor. Already a really good major league player. It's just and if he reaches the ceiling, he's gonna be real solid. So he deserved a top 4 spot in this list. And then the top 3, we have Luis Galarza. He is an 80 contact bat at third base. The range is a bit low, but the arm is so good. I think he can survive there. It says he can be a 55 third baseman. Not going to be super rangy, but I think with that kind of arm, he could still be just barely negative zone range guy. But then with how insane the bat is at third base, if he gets anywhere close to that 80 contact with a plus power, plus gap power, the eye is pretty developed at 20 years old, 35 current, and the avoid case super high. This guy is a monster. If he could have anywhere close, when he gets to a ceiling, if he gets there, with high intelligence too, which I really like. If he gets to say he's a 75 contact, 60 gap, 55 gap and 60 home run power, that's a third baseman that's going to hit like 310 with 40 home runs, and that is a ridiculously valuable player. That's like just a crazy ceiling. So very few third basemen in Major League history of that kind of combo to have like kind of like an 80-60 type thing. That'd be like a Wander Franco in his prime, which is like top 3 player in FTD. So the ceiling on this guy is just so insane. It'll be really interesting to see if he gets there. Really elite prospect in my opinion. And then there's only 2 guys above him. So the top 2 we have Mitch Drew. This guy is a 70 contact guy. He's hitting 311 in AAA at 20 years old. Just incredible bat. The guy has 70, 65 potentials. The eye's a bit low, but the avoid K is pretty high and the contact's so high. Another one of those guys that's just going to be a little bit of an aggressive swinger, not walk a ton, but just hit the ball so hard. He's going to be a fringy center fielder. He could probably survive there as like a negative center fielder defensively, but not ridiculously bad negative. The bat is so good. He could probably start there, but he'd be a crazy high level corner outfielder. It's really rangy. So the guy's a 5-tool player. He can hit for power. He can run. He has a good arm, high work ethic, home run power, everything you look for. If he gets to the last 15 points of contact and home run potential, he is just going to be an absolute weapon out there. So everything you look for: spray, fly ball guy, line drive guy, just everything. Incredible skill set. So absolutely love that prospect, and this just a crazy ceiling on him with ability to do everything, impact the game. All the levels there: runner, defender, hitter, hit for power. Crazy. Next up, we have Manny Guevara. This guy is, in my opinion, the number 1 prospect in baseball. The OSA, I think, has a really low. The skill set is really interesting. He's 6'8" switch hitter at 19 years old, fly ball hitter. The power is like a prodigy type power. I have him as I had Drew as the only 65 FV value guy, the last guy we just did, and then I have Guevara actually one above that at 70 FV as a 70 future value. That is the same rating Vladdy Guerrero got as a prospect, and if you look at him, he's pretty much like a Vladdy Guerrero type bat. I think that power potential, it might be 90 if there's no limit on it. It's been 80. It's one of the craziest scouting things I've ever seen. He went from, my scout didn't scout him for like a year, and he went from 25 to 70 power, which is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in this game. The OSA had a little better update halfway through the 2030, so they had him go from 25, 55 to 75 in like a year and a half. That's just one of the craziest jumps I've ever seen in the history of playing this game. The contact went up like crazy too, so 25 to 55. So all he's waiting on is a little bit more contact because it's like still 25 off his potential. And the eye obviously is pretty low, which doesn't really matter because the avoid K is so high. With that kind of power and that kind of avoid K, he shouldn't be like a 37% strikeout guy. As soon as that avoid K gets closer to his potential, it should be a guy that he might not walk a ton, but he's also probably only going to strike out 25% of the time. And I think that's one of the rarest things to get to that high advanced and still have 80 potential in the contact and power. He's a guy that I think if he's anywhere close to what the ceiling says, he could probably hit 60 home runs a year and hit 300. One of the most explosive offensive players I've ever seen. The craziest thing is he's so good against righties. He already has 80 power. Like I said, he might have 90 power against righties in a couple of years. I wouldn't be surprised if this guy breaks a single season home run record in a couple of years. I think he, with such high avoid K, I just don't see in the low walks, it just gives him even more opportunities to hit the ball and not walk and take away from the home run total. So I could just see this guy hitting like 55, 60 home runs a year like Alvarez, and maybe in his prime, if he lives up to his ceiling, hitting like 70, 75 home runs in a year. The guy has the guy just has the scariest offense profile I've ever seen, and it's going to be so exciting, especially the Yankees with the short corners there. He should just be able to hit a million home runs. So incredible ceiling. And even though he's a first baseman, he's a really high level one, 6'8", 50, 40 range. So he's already a 50 defender there. Could also almost play left field there, 40 range, 55. Probably survive as a negative left fielder with an elite bat if you had another top level first baseman. He's just that good offensively. You can live with a few more errors a year out there in left field, but regardless, the defense doesn't really matter with this guy. He's just one of the most incredible offensive bats you've ever seen. Fangraphs actually had a 80 contact rating on Vladdy too, and like a 60 or 65 power rating on him back in the day. And if you look at Vladdy in our game, he looks. I think he's a. Oh shoot. It's going slow there. He's an 80 contact, 65 power. So he pretty much lived up to exactly in FTD what Fangraphs had on him in real life as the potentials when he was a prospect. So also kind of lower I with a high avoid K. So very similar player to Vladdy. It's just the difference is that this guy isn't quite the runner Vladdy is, but he has 15 more power potential, already higher current power. So think of Vladdy with more power, like 20 to 25% more power, which is terrifying because Vladdy's been incredible in FTD. So anyways, that's the list. I thought it would be really fun to talk about these guys and go over the top prospects. And obviously, there's another nice short list I have here. I'd put complex elite. So that's guys that didn't quite qualify for this list, the top guys in rookie ball. So obviously, you have some really elite players that we didn't talk about in this list that I didn't qualify because they haven't played at all. That I think would definitely be on this list in a year or two once they've had a season of rookie. Got some really high ceiling guys here. I think Hill will be on the list next year. Played pretty good year in rookie. Probably could have put him on this list, but I thought I'd wait till next year till he's up in A-ball. And then you obviously have the absolute beast, Cerrotos. This guy kind of is just like that Yankees guy we just talked about, just an incredibly rare bat. This guy could be number one on this list in a few years for sure. And then we have some other really high ceiling first baseman bats like Tim Lutz looks like a beast left fielder. And then you got Omar Barba, just got signed international. So all these guys I have in the short list to keep an eye on. And I think we'll see who can jump and be on the list next year once they've developed a little bit more. But really high ceiling guys you have in FTD for sure. So the other guy, this guy is going to be really high on the list next year. I think once he has another year under his belt, he's a guy that's a super high level corner outfielder. So can't wait. Anyways, that's it. That was a long episode, but I hope you guys enjoyed. Cheers.